Hi, I'm Representative Al Baldessaro, and here we are once again at Who's Looking Out for You. I have a special co-host today, Representative Sherm Packard, filling in for Representative Janine Nada, who is doing family things today. Sherm, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Al.
Hey, it was great to see you this morning at the Center Right meeting. Norquist, what a great speaker and job that he does.
Yeah, it's the stuff that he lets people know that you never hear on the, the left news, that, people just don't hear about this stuff. And I didn't grab any papers. We had another meeting right after that upstairs.
Yeah,
but it is amazing, the truth that somebody like that, puts out to the public, which, these CNN, NBC, and all those other news organizations just distort the truth all the time.
You ain't kidding. One thing I learned this morning, and of course I've been learning on all these conference calls I've been on, the silent majority is alive and well. We know you're not saying anything, you're supporting the president. Don't worry about it. Your vote counts when you vote. But we got a special guest today.
We do. Very special guest.
And a longtime friend, and you've probably known him a lot longer than I have, Wayne MacDonald. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's
great to be here.
Yeah, and for people that are watching, Wayne, how long you lived in town?
Almost 64 years.
64 years. Wow, convicted murderers don't do that much time. 64 years. But anyways, Wayne is running for the first time as a state representative. Wayne, let people know just so where you've been for the last 64 years.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. My family moved here when I was 2 years old. I'm going to be 66 next month. And an interesting fact is that I actually, when I was growing up and going to school, there was only one school in the whole town of Londonderry, and that was Londonderry Central School. Graduated from there in 1968. 1976, they renamed it Matthew Thornton School because of the bicentennial and the fact that Matthew Thornton was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence and came from here in town. But throughout the time I've lived in Londonderry, and I obviously chose to stay here after I grew up. I was in the window manufacturing business for 19 years, a company called Standard Sash and Door, Merrimack Valley Wood Products. Got bought out by Jackson Lumber a number of years ago. It's not there anymore. But then I, after that, went to work for the state of New Hampshire, Department of Health and Human Services. I retired there last year after 23 years. I retired as a senior fraud investigator, where I was involved with resolving 2,339 fraud cases, over 200 of which were convictions, the felony and misdemeanor level. Some with jail
saving
time.
the taxpayers' money, bringing it back.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And it included improperly issued food stamps, improperly issued various types of cash benefits, improperly issued Medicaid benefits, which is obviously a huge expense for the state, improperly issued child care benefits. Those are the four programs in particular. So that's what I did for 23 years. Prior to that, again, 19 in the private sector. Politically, I've been chairman of the New Hampshire Republican Party. I'm very honored and very happy to have been able to serve the Republican Party at every single level. I was town chairman here in Londonderry years ago. Karen Hutchinson, a former state representative, she and I actually restarted the Republican Party. It had been dormant for a number of years, and back in the late 70s we restarted it. It's had its fits and starts. It's ebbed and flowed since then, but it's always been there. And right now it's one of the most active periods that it's ever been. And we're really excited about that. I'm currently the treasurer of the town committee, but I've also served as chairman of the Rockingham County Republican Party for 10 years, chairman of the state party on three different occasions.
Where did you find all this time to be involved with that and working?
Well, I also worked on my master's degree and got an MBA from Rivier University after I got a BA from St. Anselm College in political science. So it was busy. I was younger then too, and but I've always enjoyed public service, and that's one of the reasons after retiring from the executive branch from Health and Human Services, I've decided to run for state representative and continue that involvement.
What a perfect guy to represent the town of Londonderry. What do you think, Sherm?
Well, I mean, Wayne has done so much for, the citizens and the Republicans in the state of New Hampshire. He's been vice chairman of the party for a number of years. When he was chairman of the county committee, I was finance chair. My wife was finance chair. We had a great group of people that we worked together. And we raised quite a bit of money through those 10 years, and it was all turned over to the candidates in Rockingham County, to
Right.
help them get elected over those 10-year period. So, he's being a little modest, but he's really been a solid trooper for, the citizens of the state of New Hampshire, the citizens of Londonderry, and the Republican Party in the state of New Hampshire.
Well, Sid, I didn't realize, Wayne, you've been here that long, and
Yeah, I decided to stay after I grew up. My family moved here when I was only 2 years old. I was actually born in Derry, so
Right.
I'm a native of the area. But,
well, it was one of the things that, I think about there, because Republicans controlled this state for 100 years or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
And is that the reason why we don't have a sales tax or a payroll tax?
Absolutely, that's always been a key part of the Republican platform and Republican stance. And there have been times over the years the Democrats haven't always had it in their platform. We've always had it in ours. No sales tax, no income
Right.
tax, and that's certainly a position where I hold very strongly too. I don't support either one.
Well, I know in my 14 years in Sherm, he's been up there when they were riding horse and buggy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, they
how
took
many-
my hitching post
Yeah,
away.
That's right. How many times have they brought up they want to pass taxes?
Oh,
Up there?
I mean, in the 30 years I've been up there, it's I can't tell you how many times they brought it up, but we got to remember too that one of their gubernatorial candidates a number of years ago, Mark Fernald, actually came out and advocated for an income tax, and
And he lost in a
I think he
landslide.
lost in a landslide, but so this is something that the Democrats have wanted for, as long as we've been around, and they will push it again this year. So that's why it's so important that we return Governor Sununu to office, and we return the House and the Senate to Republican control, so that the citizens in New Hampshire will not be taxed out of their homes.
Sherm, what makes me laugh, and I'm sure you know better than probably both of us, because you've been in the higher leadership for looking at the whole picture, where Sherm and I look at the House and what goes on there. But you look at these two candidates, socialists, that are running for Democrat governor. I'm going to call them a socialist. If I hurt somebody's feelings, I'm sure they'll get over it because of the way they do business up there. But anyways, why would they be running like Zelensky and Phelps wanting an income tax?
It makes absolutely no sense. You look historically at Republican and Democratic governors. Walter Peterson, a Republican governor, he ran, with the pledge to veto a broad-based tax in 1968 and 1970, going all the way back to then. 1972, he decides, well, I'm not going to take the pledge this year. I'm going to leave it open in terms of whether we have an income tax. Governor Mel Thompson, who challenged him in the Republican primary, defeated Walter Peterson as a two-term governor because he failed to take the pledge. Hugh Gallen lost what would have been his third term to John H. Sununu, current governor's father, in 1982, large measure because he did not take the pledge. He had taken it in 78 and 80. He did not take it in 82. He lost. Gene Shaheen didn't take the pledge in 2000 and almost lost to Gordon Humphrey.
Right.
So it's still very relevant to running in New Hampshire, and it's as a Republican, I'm glad they're not taking the pledge because it bodes well for Governor Sununu's reelection, I think.
You ain't kidding. I've taken the pledge every 2 years. Matter of fact, I just signed it this morning with Grover Norquist.
Okay.
And I was honored to do that because in 14 years, I refused to vote for any taxes or anything. A fee here or there on something, that's a user fee. I can handle that. But when they start raising the fees, I got problems, with that there. And Sherm, if I did wanted to vote for a tax, he'd be kicking me in the butt. Sherm. For those that don't know, Representative Sherm Packard is the deputy minority leader. I'm the floor leader. Okay, and Sherm, with his knowledge, been up there. He's also been Speaker Pro Tem.
Speaker Pro Tem, Deputy Speaker, Chairman for the Transportation Committee for 12 years, Vice Chairman of Legislative Administration for 3 years. I was the minority leader back in 9 and 10 when we picked up 125 seats.
And the reason why I bring that up, because I want to make sure that the people of Londonderry understand that we got somebody like Wayne MacDonald running for state rep, who's been heavy involved with the GOP, understanding all the nuts and bolts of the thing. And then here we are, like myself, the floor leader. I've been a chairman, a vice chairman, a tri-chair of the House Republican Alliance, heavy involved. So with our seniority, helps out the town of Londonderry.
Absolutely.
And you, with your knowledge, you'll be able to step right in. Are you ready for this?
Well, I feel, I feel that I am, not only because of the fact I've studied political science and I have a lot of practical experience. I've also run 13 campaigns for various candidates, some of which were larger state rep districts, like some of the floterial seats in Manchester. My uncle was a state rep from Derry years ago. I ran a couple of his campaigns. And, just talking to him over the years, he was a 7-term state legislator, former chairman of what was called statutory revision back then. Now it's election law. And he was very close to Speaker Cobley, for example, and I got a lot of insight from him. And I know things have changed a bit, but Sherm and I talk all the time, you and I talk all the time, and so I have a lot of insight in terms of how the House functions. And yeah, I think I could be a fairly quick study on this stuff.
Well, what do you think?
I don't think there's anybody more qualified to step in as a freshman than Wayne is at this point, because of his involvement in the politics of New Hampshire for the last 40 years.
44.
44.
I have to agree with you there 100%, because when I first stepped in, you took me under your wing, and others, on showing me the ropes there, Dan Domain at the time. But anyways, with that knowledge, Londonderry, puts a lot of money into their schools.
Yes.
And where we only have 7 legislators, and Manchester's got a lot, Nashua's got a lot, we have to fight to make sure that Londonderry's adequacy education funding is fair, and we get our fair share, just like on the school funding, building aid and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important for Londonderry to have knowledge, experience up there, and you would bring that to the table, which would make a difference here.
Well, I'd certainly do everything I could, and I'd be looking forward to working, obviously, with both of you and others in the delegation from Londonderry who are very seasoned, very experienced, and well respected.
Now, is there anything that you have, like little key issues that you're looking to take on when you get up there? You're going to work on Sherm there and make sure that the helmet loss stays put in the drawer?
Yes, that's one. That would be one. But in terms of my overall positions, and I have a flyer out, but again, we talked about sales tax, income tax, totally opposed to them, remain so. We'll be continuing to work against those and vote against those. I support educational choice. I'm pro-life, very strong on the Second Amendment. All of those, mainstream Republican issues, mainstream New Hampshire issues, more importantly. And certainly want to work with the legislative leadership. And New Hampshire has challenges. Every state does. Always have challenges, but hopefully the experience I have and I can bring to bear will help us to address those.
I think one thing that everybody has to realize is that because of COVID, we've taken a real hit in our rooms and meals tax and business profits tax,
Right.
and even business enterprise tax. And the next budget is going to be very, very hard. It's going to be difficult, just like the budget was back in 11 and 12, when the Democrats left us with that $850 million hole in the budget because they overspent. So the next budget, could be anywhere from $500 million to $1 billion deficit.
Yep.
We don't know yet, because we don't know how this is going to proceed into the next
I had
into
read
next
one
year.
news story that the estimate was revenues were down about 20%. Is that accurate, or is it more than that?
Well, the revenues are definitely down around that.
But they're better than we thought.
They're
what I
better.
mean?
Fortunately, we
Yeah.
didn't hit the trigger yet. So the business profits tax won't go up, but it's still being in the audit phase. So we won't know till probably towards the end of the year the final figures.
And one of the added values, like Sherm and I, with families and everything, and just like yourself now coming up there, we know what it is to sit around the table at our home and figure out a budget. And we know if we spend more money in one area or we get taxed more, it takes away our quality of life. And we're not going to do that to the people of Londonderry. So we're going to make damn well sure that we don't downshift, we don't mandate onto the cities and towns. Right. And like I said, Sherm being the number 2 up there, he's behind the scenes pushing with the Senate, the governor, and other stuff there, making damn well sure that we don't take a beating in our taxes. Our property taxes are higher enough.
Exactly.
And I think you'd be a definite asset because you've been involved in a lot of stuff. I've seen you up there in different meetings, involved in everything in the 14 years I've been up there.
Well, again, in addition to my service at Health and Human Services, bringing in revenue back to the state from various clients who had gotten benefits either by mistake or fraudulently. I was also in the private sector for 19 years, a business manager for a medium-sized company. I have an MBA where I've taken finance classes and so forth. So I certainly would welcome the opportunity to do anything I could to maximize our revenues and also keep our expenditures in line.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I was cleaning out my office here. My wife and I had just had put air conditioning and other stuff in there. But anyways, I found a box of books that were in my office. And Phyllis Schufley, I've met her quite a few years ago before she died. And she had sent me a box of books when she wrote her books.
Okay, yeah.
And I had put it in the corner and forgot about it. And then stuff got piled on it. So yesterday we found the box and I figured, what better to bring these in?
Oh.
You know what I mean? On Phyllis here, on this book that she wrote about Trump. I thought it was, very good.
Thank you.
So I brought you in each one there,
Oh,
and I
thank
got a
you,
few
Al.
more at the house that I'm going to give away to other people there.
She was in charge of the Women's Forum, I think.
Yeah,
Was it the
big
Women's
time.
Forum?
She was a big conservative, well-to-do lady in California and other
I
areas.
continue to date myself, but I remember back in the 70s when I first got involved in politics that she was very big with Reagan and
Yes.
that whole effort when he ran in 1980.
The book I have at home was signed by her, sent to me, but with a case for me to deliver them.
Okay.
And like I said, they got put in my office because we were redoing something in the house and, forgot about them.
Sure.
So now they're there, and I figure at least what better but two conservatives to have those books. But anyways, I brought in some notes here just to give you an idea, and Sherm can probably bring some of this, like some of the wacky stuff that the Democrats brought up at the State House. You remember the wood stove bill?
Yes, the wood stove bill was probably up in the top 5 ludicrous bills that were brought in. It said that if your wood stove was older than, was it
1986.
86, I was
Yeah.
going to say 85,
Yeah.
you had to throw it out and put a new wood stove in. I mean, I can tell you the wood stove in my house is older than 1986.
Right.
And and I have it checked every year. I have, somebody come and check it. In fact, the guy's a full-time fireman, and he has this, part-time business, cleaning chimneys and stuff. And every year I have it checked, and every year it's fine. So why would I have to throw away a perfectly good wood stove and buy a new one? It
Yeah,
just
it's
doesn't make any sense.
I mean, this is stuff I'm sure you know about, but I mean, you're going to have to deal with also
Sure, oh,
on the
absolutely.
stuff they put up there. Do you have an old fire, what do they call them, stove in your house?
No, I don't.
Good thing we stopped them on that. We actually embarrassed them because that was what a wacky mandate that would have been.
And this was legislation. It wasn't a government rule. It was
This was
legislation.
legislation.
This
the
was
Democrats brought
Democratic
forward.
legislation that they wanted to.
'Cause I remember when I was in the private sector, we dealt with a lot of administrative rules, like from environmental services on underground fuel tanks. They weren't leaking, but because they were a certain age, they wanted us to dig them up, and we were able to get a waiver at one point. And this was right at the height of the recession, when that kind of a
Right.
expenditure would have
Yeah.
really hurt.
I mean, it's a shame. I mean, you're talking like some of the other stuff there, the wacky stuff there, like the plastic straws.
Well, not just straws, but plastic
Plastic
bags
bags, right.
and all kinds of. Wasn't even paper, if I remember correctly. Wasn't even paper bags they wanted to get rid of too.
Right. They wanted to use the cloth bags.
They wanted everybody in the state to use cloth bags.
Right.
Period.
But what did we just find out recently with the COVID there around the country? The cloth bags
carry the germs.
They carry the germs. So I'm wondering what's going to happen now on this down the road. Are they still going to try to get rid of the plastic bags? I mean, many people, like my wife, uses the plastic bags to put it in the trash cans.
I
put
do-
it in,
I do
you
that
know,
too.
Or I see people with the plastic bags picking up the dog poop when they're walking their dog. I mean, this is crazy.
A lot of people use those plastic bags for other things other than, they bring the groceries home and then they do use it for other things like that.
Now, another one there we're talking about on like some of the products there that they wanted to ban out of the state, banning flame retardants for alleged health reasons. How do we ban a company that's a national company and we start saying your product can't come in, your product can't come in? How do you do that? You ever done that since you've been up there?
That actually came up a number of years ago. I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but that flame retardant material
On the couches, right?
on the couches
Yeah.
and the chairs did come up a number of years ago. I honestly, I don't remember the outcome. It was
Right.
probably 15, 20 years ago, but I do remember it did come up.
I mean, I know we had concerns about the firemen with cancer, that we were, on board with the foam and the other stuff there. But the materials, how do you tell the companies, stop at the border? We don't want that furniture. I mean, it's a tough one. How do you control it? You know,
Well, we're fighting to control the borders of the country. How can we control
Yeah,
the borders
you
of
ain't
the states?
kidding.
I mean, it's,
you know, I mean, and if you look at some of the taxes and the fee stuff there, you know, like for instance, the rate set by the unelected bureaucrats, they wanted to set the, you know, the tax rate.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what would that the Londonderry?
That's actually new, and I think we've got to make something clear. The three of us have to make something absolutely clear. The Democrats are going to tell you they want to put an income tax in, and it's going to lower your property taxes. There hasn't been one state in this country that has instituted an income tax, and then the property taxes were lowered.
You ain't kidding.
And all you have to do is talk to the people from Connecticut and
Jersey,
and New
and-
Jersey
yeah.
and all the other states that made that promise. We're going to put an income tax in. Your property taxes are going to go way down, and guess what?
they
It
just
didn't
find-
happen.
They
No,
just
no.
find new places to spend the money.
And
That's
it's
all they
not
do.
going to happen here. If an income tax was to pass in the state of New Hampshire, your property taxes are not going to go down.
You know, I actually did try to do a Google search on that to take a look and see where they went down. I think it was Connecticut went down the first year, and then after that went skyrocket. That was
It's
it.
exactly what happened with the education tax, the state education tax.
Right.
The tax rate did go down a little bit the first year, and if you remember, Al, then it skyrocketed
right.
back up.
I remember when I ran, it was the big bill was HB 1616 on the education bill. Remember they were all mad at Dan Germain and some other
Yeah,
reps
yeah,
there back
yeah,
then because they voted against it, and which wasn't a good bill for Londonderry. But some of the people don't read the whole bill, and they only read a portion of it, and you know, and then all of a sudden that's a great bill, when really it would have done damage to us. That was when I first, you know, ran on that there.
I remember when Brendan Byrne brought the new, in New Jersey, brought the income tax in, and he was definitely going to lose, and he and the Democrats in the legislature were able to bring the property tax down just before the election, and he squeaked by, and of course they've never gone down since
No.
then, but he managed to get his second term.
Now, you know where he has that MBA and took a couple of finance classes. I mean, maybe you can talk about why they would want to create a new tax on capital gains. You know, I mean, why? I mean, you know.
Discourages investment, and if you discourage investment, you hurt business and their ability to grow. It makes absolutely no
Yeah.
sense.
Do you know when that came up, I got a lot of calls from veterans that came in and moved in and retired here in the state. And a lot of them throughout the years invested in stocks and other stuff.
Right.
So there was a lot of concerns that they were paying more money out of here, that it wasn't cost effective. You know, I mean, for them to stay here because they were counting on that, you know, money for retirement and other stuff there. Of course,
I've argued with Democrats over the years. You know, when I was at HHS, I didn't belong to the SEA, State Employees
Yeah.
Association, the state union, but I knew the first vice president pretty well, Ken Woos, who you may have known him, you guys may have known him too. He passed away very suddenly of a heart attack, he was a great guy, but very liberal, Bernie Sanders supporter.
Right, yeah.
And I said, you know, he was saying, oh, you know, business needs to create more jobs. I said, well, if you cut their taxes and you cut regulations, which are basically another form of taxation, they'd have the money to put into employee benefits and wages and create new jobs. And
You ain't kidding.
he never had an answer as to why that was not a good idea. So.
Wow. Now, you remember SB1 when that came down? Sherm, you remember the SB1 there, right? With the bill with all the taxes that were in that bill? You know, especially, we've been pushing for years for people to smoke, that smoke like myself, to quit smoking. I know many people that vaped,
Yeah.
that helped them quit smoking. I haven't got there yet, but I hope to one of these days. But anyways, they wanted to tax that.
Yep.
You know, and some of the other areas on sports betting, and, which I can understand there. But why would you want to increase the business taxes? You know?
It makes absolutely
According,
no sense.
and this is their words, according to them, business taxes don't make much difference to businesses as some other things do, which I absolutely categorically disagree with. Because the minute we dropped the business taxes, for the first time in 20 years, what was it, 6 years ago, the first budget, businesses started coming back, businesses started spending more, and all of a sudden we went from being the highest business tax in the Northeast to one of the lowest. And that brought business into the state. And then Governor Sununu just really expanded on that. And I mean, we had a rate of unemployment at what, 2.3%, I think it
right,
was?
yep,
I
one of the
it
lowest
was
in the country.
One of the lowest in the country.
Yeah.
So, you know, what we were doing works. Raising business taxes, raising an income tax, raising a sales tax, like the representative from Nashua wanted to do. Was it 4.5%, I think, sales tax?
Yeah.
Which would have devastated the southern border of our state, because we wouldn't have got the traffic coming across the border from Massachusetts. And his argument was, well, it's a little bit lower than Mass. Well, it wasn't low enough. If it had passed, Massachusetts people aren't going to come up here for 1%. They're going to come up here for 5%, whatever there is down there, your sales tax is, but they're not going to come up for 1%.
Right.
So we would have lost all that in the stores along the border. We would have lost the taxes that you get on the cigarettes. You would have lost the taxes you get on the alcohol that they buy when they're up here. Usually they go to dinner or lunch when they come up here, so you would have lost the rooms and meals tax.
Yeah.
So it just isn't the sales tax on the items itself. It's all that other stuff we would have lost.
And what do they call the gas tax? There's another name for it. That Londonderry gets probably almost $600,000 or more a year off that gas tax.
It's called a road toll.
The road toll.
Road toll.
You know what I mean? And before, they were trying to cut that, now do other things, taking money and go in different directions with that there. But we benefit when people come into our town and gas up here.
Well, you get, I believe I'm correct, 12% of the highway trust fund.
Is that what it, okay.
Yeah, it's 12%. So, the town gets a fair amount of money because of our population and stuff, and,
And that
so-
helps us
and that-
maintain
And that
it.
helps maintain our local roads, and it helps, where dangerous intersections and stuff like that, like they were talking about with the money that they've already got to do the light on Stonehenge Road there.
Right, yep.
In 28.
Yeah,
I mean, 28's a state highway, but, Stonehenge is a town road.
Yep. Matter of fact, I don't know if you knew on the money that was coming back to us, they had a fight behind the scene with the Democrats when over the budget with the governor to give the extra money back that we got back to the communities. Remember that battle?
Yeah, and the governor came down and gave us a check for what, $258,000, I think?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a win-win. So with all this stuff, this crazy stuff that goes on up there, hopefully we're going to win back the majority up there and put a stop and live within our means. I mean, now that you're retired, you got a lot of time to play.
Well, yes. I mean, I would, 40, 50, 60 hours a week that I was spending at Health and Human Services, tracking people down all over the state. Now I can hopefully do it in a different way, from the legislative perspective instead of an executive perspective.
Well, it's great to get somebody that can just step right in
Oh,
and,
yeah.
make it happen there, and that's for sure.
But isn't tourism still the #1 industry in New
Supposed to
Hampshire?
be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you go up on the gas tax, you go up on rooms and meals, you go up on any of that stuff, a sales tax in general, and that's going to severely hamper our tourist
Well,
effort.
remember the campground tax?
Yes.
You remember they put that in?
Short-lived, right?
At midnight, short-lived, they put it in.
I was there.
Yeah,
That's when I was the
right.
minority leader, the
Yep.
Republican leader.
That's right.
And I can tell you exactly what happened. It was Thursday night.
11 o'clock,
The budget
right?
was,
That's
no, it
right.
was about 10:30. The budget was supposed to be done at midnight by statute.
Right.
And it was between 10 and 10:30, if I remember correctly, it was the head of the DRA, came in and said to the chairman of the conference committee, I think it was Marjorie Smith, but I can't remember exactly. But anyways, the Democrats were in charge at that point, and said, I just found you $70 million. That $70 million included $10 million for the campground tax,
Yeah.
$30 million for the LLC tax.
When the DMV in there too, on the surcharge on the DMV.
No, that was different.
That was a
that
different one,
that was
right.
different. That was
Okay.
$60 million different.
Right.
But and then they just categorically took a number of different items and raised the amount of revenue they anticipated. So if the revenue from one division was going to be, I'm just using numbers, $10 million. Oh well, we can boost that up to $12 million. So this is how they got $70 million in a matter of 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I was sitting there, as the Republican leader at that point.
I remember leaving about 9:30 or 10 because they went on a break.
Yes.
And I thought it was all done.
No.
And then I find out the next day they came back with all these
Yep.
new taxes. And
Out of the
And
clear blue.
weren't all the revenue estimates all inflated?
Oh,
also?
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
they were all inflated to begin with.
it put us in the hole.
That's
Big time.
why the following year, and that's, you know, they had spent like, I think, $400 million plus of the Obama money that came in, you know, from that money that came in from Washington, which we weren't gonna get again. And that's why we kept telling them, you've overspent the budget. And we predicted 800 million. That's what we predicted. I had, at the time, I had Neil Kirk and, you know, a few others put an alternative budget together.
Kenny.
And Kenny and a few others, and Doug Scammon, you know, the former speaker. And we put an alternative budget together, and we said, if you don't work with us, you're going to be at $800 million in the red next budget. We're 850.
Norman Major is one of the, you know,
Oh,
the
I know Norm.
gurus when it comes to projected
Yeah.
revenues and all that. I mean, it's like you were living in a home, and you know, you're trying to run your home and vacations, and you're going to project for that year. Well, I'm going to make so much money, and that money don't come in. What happens? You're eating hot dogs. You know,
Well, I mean-
you're sacrificing to keep a roof over your head. You know, and that's what we do with the state.
You're eating hot
you know?
dogs with no buns and
That's
no,
right,
no
with no
condiments.
buns, yeah. So they project way high, and but we really put the scare in them because many people canceled their campgrounds because they were called and said, oh, it's going to cost you another 20, another 40, another 50, 60.
I think if I remember correctly, they were going to go with the same percentage as the rooms and meals tax.
Yeah.
They were lumping it under the rooms and meals tax, if I remember. But
And-
they estimated that the revenue would be like $9,500,000, just under $10 million.
And that blew it up in their face because
Oh,
many
yeah.
people canceled
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
trips.
And we repealed it
Right.
immediately,
Yep.
you know, when we took over the following year.
Well, it's good that we're bringing this up because the people who are watching this really don't have an idea or see or know what goes on up at the State House there behind the scenes.
Isn't there an incredible number of taxes? I remember when Donna Sitek was chairman of Ways and Means, she actually detailed every single tax there is in the state. And it's quite a sophisticated system, quite a lengthy means of revenue that we already have. If it's managed correctly, more than adequate to meet our needs.
Yeah, you've got about 15 major revenue streams, and then you've got a bunch of minor ones.
Well, you figure the rooms and meals tax, when I first ran, was 8%. And then there was a big battle we had with the Democrats when they took over.
And
They raised it to 9%.
And it's still there, right?
Yeah, it's
Still
still there.
there.
Taxes
9%.
almost never go down,
No.
unfortunately.
You know, once you put a tax in there, it's tough to get rid of it. I mean, you know, we were fortunate because when we took back over the House, we were able to get rid of real quick, fast track some of the stuff to get rid of those taxes. You know, it was just a
This is in
no-brainer to do.
2011?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with the supermajority, you had to override some of Governor Lynch's vetoes to accomplish that, too, right?
And, you know, and one of the things they put in, you know, also, and they were just trying to raise the money on it, was when you sold your house or you refinanced your house. What do
Real
they
estate
call it?
transfer tax?
Yeah, the transfer.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a killer for people here. We're thinking you're going to make some money when you refinance or you sell. You got to pay more taxes. They try to raise it again under 470
And-
SB 74.
Wasn't it originally that only one side had to pay the real estate transfer when it was first implemented, and then they expanded that both the seller and the buyer has to
Yeah.
pay it? And I think that's still the case, isn't it?
Yeah, it is still the case. yes.
But anyways, I think the governor, you know, vetoed on that bill there. But I mean, you know, it's like how many bills he vetoed so far?
I think we're at 22,
22.
and
That's
I
what,
think
55, 57 last year, or?
No, it was 58 last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
58.
Two passed.
We sustained all of them
Yeah.
except for two, and there's 22, and I think 5 of them are in the Senate.
But if you look at those 22, like they said this morning in the meeting we were at, those 22 have like, some of them have like 20, 30 bills on them, the ombudsman's.
Oh, yeah.
You know, bills, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 is 38 bills
Right.
on it.
And I can say, you know, I voted no on everything. You know, I'm the former House Republican Alliance constitutionalist. So, in my opinion, some of them bills that didn't have a House hearing, even when the Senate bill on a veterans issue, I'm a veterans activist, I had to be consistent. I voted against it. You know, I knew they had the votes on the other side, but I just couldn't,
Right.
you know, live with myself, say, well, I'm going to take care of the veteran side now with everyone else. So I voted against them all.
Well, one of the other problems was with that, with all those bills that came over, is the Senate, just threw a bunch of bills and then a bunch of Senate bills onto House bills that were sent over there. They took like one House bill and and like 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't remember the actual bill itself, but they threw
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that
they
was
threw
the ombudsman.
38 separate bills onto that as an amendment.
Wow.
And, a lot of the Senate bills that were thrown into these amendments, that was, relative to state and local government administration. 38 bills were added on. A good portion of them were Senate bills that never had a hearing in the House. Now, in fairness, all these House bills had a hearing in the House, and when they went over there, they technically had a hearing in the Senate because they were brought in as an amendment, so technically they did have a hearing, but the Senate bills didn't have no hearing.
And that goes against our House rules and the Constitution, that every bill has a hearing, and I don't know, I just couldn't.
Without a hearing, the public
Yeah.
can't weigh in and offer its input, and it is about the average citizen that this is government's meant to serve the most.
But a lot of these bills they brought forward, again, were bills that already passed the House once, went to the Senate there last year, the governor vetoed it, and they thought, oh, well, maybe the governor will change his mind, they brought the bills back again. One of the big ones that he just vetoed was the red flag.
Yeah.
Right.
The red flag gun bill, which is, crazy. I mean, I could turn around and look at Sherm and say, Sherm, you looked at it the wrong way, you're crazy, I'm calling the cops. Next thing I know, they're taking his guns and
Exactly. You're guilty
everything
until
else. Right.
guilty until proven innocent.
With no due process.
Right.
Then you got to fight to get your guns back and prove that you're not nuts. I mean, it's out of control what they've been doing and stuff there. So, now, have you thought about what committee and stuff you want to be on?
Well, there's a couple and that I've thought about, and not to be premature because it's a long way between now and November, and December when the new House would take over. But a couple of committees I have an interest in. One would be, of course, election law. Having been a state party chairman, been involved with elections for so many years, good amount of insight into how that process works. That would be one committee. And then after 23 years with Health and Human Services, that would be another committee that I'd consider. One of those two are primarily what I'm thinking of right now. Because I know a lot about Health and Human Services, the many divisions. In fact, I've worked with most of the divisions like child support, improvement in integrity, Division of Children, Youth and Families, licensing and certification. I've worked with a lot of those different divisions within the department, and it's, of course, the largest department in state government. I think it's something like 1/3 of the state workforce. So, that would be a committee, and again, it's a little premature to even speculate, but those are the two committees I've thought about when I'm serving on one of those.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the great things that, like we've done recently, at least in my opinion, and Sharon Carson's been a big player in it, and I co-sponsored a couple of bills, was on the foster care, and getting that thing straightened away, because when you looked at all the foster care rules and everything else, they were here, over here, over here. It was hard for them to understand what's going on. Then when you put a kid in those homes, they really didn't understand there was no plan. It was supposed to be a plan by law. Mm-hmm. So we put it all in one order where you don't have to go searching everywhere. And then Sharon Carson had got recently worked on behind the scenes on getting a big grant, to help out with the foster care kids there, because we got a lot of kids in foster care. And we were having a lot of foster parents, as you know, walking away because, the regulations and the other stuff that was going on. So to me, that was a win-win for the state there, and along with grandparents' rights.
Oh, exactly.
And I was fortunate to co-sponsor that. And with the Republican push, and Sherm on the top side there, we made a big difference, in getting that stuff done there for the state. So now if there's a divorce or something goes wrong, at least the grandparents can step in and, protect the children. So that was a win-win. That's why it's important to have people like you coming up, that are experienced and knowledgeable and will, to make the difference. Because, I open my eyes seeing the stuff that goes on in the state that the everyday person never sees, that we get to fix and everything else.
Londonderry is in a very unique position as far as our representatives. As you said, Al, I'm the deputy Republican leader. You're the senior floor leader. Tom Dolan, the ranking member on municipal and county, resigned for reasons, and we made Tom Dolan the ranking member on municipal and county. You know, Betsy McKinney is the clerk on legislative administration.
She was finance for a long time, wasn't she?
She was finance. You know, we put her on finance.
Wasn't she chairman of
back
Fish and
then.
Game at one time, too?
Yeah, years and
Years
years
ago,
ago.
yeah.
And then Doug Thomas has been great on, as we talked last time, on science and
Right.
tech. You know, and that's
He's
an
the
area
big
by
geek.
itself. So,
Yeah.
you know, we've got some high-profile players that really make a difference. They're the good of the citizens of Londonderry, and we can do that because of our longevity and influence.
And yeah, the institutional knowledge is what a big difference. I mean, when I said, I'm only going to do a couple of years, a couple of terms, and then I'm done. But when you start helping people, you know, you get phone calls at home and you're making a difference in their life. And you're saying, wow, and then more and more people keep calling you, saying, how could you walk away? You know, I mean, Sherm, I'm sure, you know, he gets a lot of calls. I do, all the state reps, especially with just recently with the CARES Act, the unemployment. I mean, geez, the commissioner, George Kapadas, I would just email him with a name, with a letter from the person. Next thing you know, that night or that next day, somebody got a call. Unbelievable the support.
I know George Well is very
Yeah.
conscientious, very much on top of
He
things.
did a great job for our Londonderry residents, because I dealt with probably 20, 30, you know, people here in Londonderry, and I always told them, write me a letter, what's going on, address, last 4 years, social security, phone number, everything, and then I will forward that to George. And then, like I said, that evening or that next day, somebody contacted the person. It was unbelievable. And I had people out there calling me, crying, thanking me. They finally got their money, and they were going like a month and a half without no money, or kept borrowing from people. So, I mean, you know, it's rewarding.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I get calls all the time from people all over the state, not just Londonderry, on you know, issues concerning the Department of Safety.
Yeah.
You know, because I say I've been on the Transportation Committee for 28 of my 30 years, and I was chairman for 12 years. So, you know, I have a a tremendous relationship with the people at the Department of Safety, and usually I can straighten the situation out.
Well, and you know, longevity and institutional knowledge and experience is so important, and Londonderry has, you know, we've had some folks who may not have been able to stay as long as others, but certainly you two are veterans of the House, and you know, you were mentioning Representative Betsy McKinney earlier. Isn't it like 1/3 of the House changes over every
year,
every
Pretty much,
term?
every 2
Pretty
years,
much
yes.
about
So I mean,
Right.
so that only enhances the value of
Right.
people like you who have made that commitment to stay for a long period of time.
I mean, understand the process, the rules, the parliamentary maneuvers and things like that. And, you know, because like me, I'm a veterans activist, but I have my hands in elderly, I have my hands in, you know,
Sure.
foster care, welfare, and other stuff there, eminent domain, you know what I mean? And Sherm, you know, he might be on transportation, but he's got his hands in everything.
I remember Vance Kelly, he was our state senator here in Londonderry years ago, and he was saying how, you know, you have some key issues you want to run on and deal with when you get up there, and then you realize once you become a member of the House or the Senate, you've got all these other issues that come at you that you never could have foreseen, and that you're dealing with, and that you want to make a difference with too.
I know how many times, you know, like you co-sponsor, you sponsor legislation, and like me, I'd say you know, I'm not going to get involved in that much there. I'm going to do more on certain things. Next thing you know, you get a phone call, hey Al, can you take a look? I need a co-sponsor on this. Or they want somebody with, you know, time in. Or they call Sherm and say, okay, send me the bill. Let me look. I don't never commit. So send me the bill, let me look at it. You know, so before I commit on it, because sometimes I'm not supporting that. That's crazy.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But, you know, and then before you know it, you're signed up on 20-something, 30 bills. And, you know, and you don't realize what you did. You screwed up. You know?
I try and keep it below that, Al.
Yeah, believe me, a couple of times I did, you know, when I was with House Republican Alliance, because during the summer we would have leadership meetings and come up with how do we repeal this, how do we get rid of that, this is a constitutional issue, you take care of this, you do that, you do this, and we would put a plan together, you know, for the upcoming election. And before you know it, said, okay, I'll help you with that, I'll help you with that, okay, you know, and you boom. You know,
Well, that happens a lot with me and Dick Hinch, our Republican leader. You know, we're in the office up there, and, you know, constantly, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, when we're up there, people are coming in, I need help with this, you know, can we, you know, help us with this one? Can we help us with this one?
Right.
And I mean, that's a good portion of our time is spent, you know, trying to help the, you know, the representatives, you know, not motivate, but, you know, get through something or help them with the bill or, you know, straighten it out or something, but it's constant.
The great, when they come to somebody like Sherm or me or Betsy, you know, even if it's a electricity thing, I go to Doug.
Yeah.
They know what bills have been up 50 times before, or 20 times before, that's been redone to try to get it passed. I mean, some of the stuff they passed, I mean, under electrical, to raise electricity subsidies and other stuff there, just, I got so aggravated on that stuff there.
Well, the $800 million carbon tax,
Yeah.
they didn't have the guts to vote on. They tabled it, so they wouldn't be, you know, have a roll call vote on
Yeah.
it.
One of the things that stick in my mind, you probably remember, when I first got up there, was the big thing with the scrubber. I'm saying,
Oh, yeah.
what in the heck is an electric scrubber?
For Bo.
Yeah, for both.
For Bo Power
And it was
Plant.
something that found out later on, it was like a $20-30 million project that got downshifted to the taxpayers. I voted against it, but in the beginning, I'm saying, what are we talking about? What is a scrubber?
I think it was a hell of a lot more than that, Al,
Was
if I
it?
remember
Yeah.
correctly. And I don't hold me to the figures, but if I remember correctly, it was like $250 million estimate, and it ended up being almost
That's
double
possible,
that,
yeah.
you know, to put that
Right.
scrubber in.
And then that got downshifted to the consumers to pay that.
Got downshifted.
Right.
And then when Public Service sold the Bow plant, you know, that scrubber was completely made for that plant. So somebody couldn't take that scrubber, from what I remember, and move it to another plant.
Right.
Because it was built for the Bow
The
plant.
boat, yeah. So meanwhile, you know what I mean, these are the things that we're up against up there. And if we don't have somebody like Doug, you know, we had Mike Harrington at the time, I think and he's still back, he's back now. Yeah. But I mean, we go to these duty experts and they could sit there and next thing you know, you're falling asleep, listen to them.
Oh, sure.
You know, when them guys talk, you know.
Yeah,
So,
they are in a world of their own, that's for sure.
right, yeah, unbelievable. So have you been out and about in town and done anything? You've been shaking hands and kissing babies?
Yeah, it's been a different environment, of course, with the COVID-19 situation, but things have opened up, and yeah, I've been doing some sign waves, and Sherman and I were out the other day putting up signs around town, and,
Oh, awesome.
and I'll be looking at doing mailing and a few other things. I don't want to divulge my entire strategy. We do have a contested primary going on here,
No,
but
yeah.
no, absolutely trying to get the word out, and
Right.
and you know, we'll see what happens.
No, that's good. I mean, you've been in town, 60-some years. I remember joking with Betsy McKinney there. She said, I used to skinny dip over by my house. I said, Betsy, I didn't even know that.
Well, you probably don't want to say that on the air. But
Yeah, I love Betsy. She's, a walking book, walking knowledge
sure.
there.
Well, she's been town treasurer.
Right. And she's a CPA, I guess, and,
Wasn't
you
she
know,
involved with the library for years?
yeah, she's still involved with the library.
Yeah,
As
she
a
was one of
library
the trustees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Many
as long as I
years.
can remember.
Yeah, her and a few other ladies.
Is she a lifelong resident of Londonderry?
I think so.
Just
yeah.
about.
Yeah. Her and Karen, what's Karen's last name?
Hutchinson?
State Rep. Yeah.
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson.
Before that, it was Keegan.
Because Karen told me, I didn't know she dated somebody well-known in town here, that owns an apple orchard when she was younger.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? They've been around a long time, and, the Max and all these other apple orchards, I try to go in different ones there, and buy stuff to support the businesses, and it makes a big
I
difference.
remember Betsy's mother, Loretta McKinney, years ago. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, the family's been around for a long time.
Now, did you know each other when you were kids? Or did you?
Oh, Sherman and me?
Yeah.
We met actually, I did run for rep years ago. We both met in 1988 when we both ran that year.
Okay.
I shouldn't say this. I did beat you by 55 votes in that primary. The bad news is we both lost.
Yeah.
But Sherm ran 2 years later, and I wasn't able to. Business cycle
Right.
had gone, was such that I really couldn't take the time away. I'd had to lay people off, but yeah, no. In 1988, Karen ran. Karen Hutchinson, myself, and Sherm, and we all lost. And
What was there, 4 of us at that point?
there were
Three?
there were
3 or
6
4?
seats, 11 candidates.
Wow.
Okay.
And
All right.
so five of us were not going to make it. And in the end, one incumbent lost to a former incumbent that had beaten them 2 years prior. So there wasn't a lot of change on the delegation that year.
Wow. Well, things are looking good. I mean, I'm hoping that we could win back the House and get the state back on track with their finances and everything else. I mean, this is going to be a tough one, like he's talked about with the budget. You know, I mean, we still don't know. Is it 300 million short, 400 million?
We won't really know the you know how bad it's going to be until next year when the
Yeah.
fiscal year ends July 1st.
And that
But
trigger.
obviously, we need to the budget is worked on the first year of the session.
Right.
So starting in January, after we go back and we're all sworn in December, I mean, the Finance Committee, first of all, Ways and Means has to, try and, figure out what they're gonna take in for revenue. Then you gotta wait for the governor's budget, which comes in the middle of February. And then Finance has to try and, they got usually about 2 months to put the budget together and send it over to the Senate.
Right.
So it's gonna be a real heavy lift. And we need good, solid Republicans in there, controlling that, so that we just don't raise a whole bunch of taxes to offset. It's going to be tough, but raising taxes on the citizens in the state at this point is not the right thing
Right.
to do.
You know, I'm a true believer, and the secret to the Democrat Party is they want a sales tax. Many of them won't say anything, because if you look at, and I'll use the Democrat rep in our town. I love Ann, great job, but she follows the party line. She votes for taxes, votes against everything what the Democrats on, and it's not good for Londonderry. So we've got to make damn well sure, if you want to save and not have a sales tax or payroll tax, not
Or
only
an
that,
income tax.
or an income tax, and you don't want to see Londonderry be divided with this new, on the census, that we have to do redistricting. That's going to be important coming up this session.
Absolutely.
You're going to vote Republican down right straight through the ticket. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
That's the key that one of the messages we need to send out, is that come November, after the primary, you've got to go down the ticket. You can't stop at the governor or the president or, the United States Senate seat. You've got to go down and vote. Whether it be Democrat or Republican. I mean, hopefully you all vote Republican, but you've got to go down the ballot. You've got to complete the ballot, because you've not only got, the state Senate seat, you've got the state representative seats, but after that, you've got the county offices. The sheriff and the register of deeds and the county commissioners that run all the county business.
Right.
County attorney?
County attorney, yeah. I mean, those are, many people don't understand, how big the county budget is, but I sat on the executive committee again this year of the county, and it was roughly $85 million.
And a lot of people don't realize the county sheriff, Rockingham County, owns the BP gas station on 102 here in Londonderry. The first time in years I see sheriff cars out on the highway helping out different towns, involved with the drug task force enforcement. Chuck Maceo's been doing a great job there, so hopefully,
He's done a tremendous job
Right.
with the sheriff's department.
And if you got any questions for Chuck Maceos, please stop by that gas station, the BP, next to the Dunkin' Donuts, and ask for the sheriff. He's normally, if he's not working, he's in the back office there. But now you know what we do with the county too as a state rep, right? You familiar with that?
Exactly. In fact, speaking of Sheriff Maceos, I was joking with him. I said, well, if I get elected, maybe I'll get appointed to your subcommittee, because every county official has a subcommittee, right? And that deal with various legislation or various county matters, and so that would be possibly something for me to consider if I were to be elected, in terms of what subcommittee to serve on. So yeah, no, I'm familiar with that. You meet in Brentwood, you got the county budget to deal with as well as the state budget, and I'm sure the county budget's going to be a challenge also. COVID has
assume,
affected
yeah,
everything.
Yeah, I mean, not maybe as much as the state budget, but yeah, and I think the vast majority of the citizens probably don't realize that as state representatives, we are responsible for the county budget.
Right.
Right.
We have the final say on the county budget. It starts with the directors of the particular office. They submit a budget to the county commissioners. The county commissioners send it to the executive committee. Usually the members of the executive committee control the subcommittees, and then we go over the budget with the,
We state
different-
reps are on the
different directors.
subcommittees, yeah.
All the state reps are on the subcommittees, and then we vote as a delegation, on the county budget.
You know, having been chairman of Rockingham County Republican Committee for 10 years, I got to learn a lot about county government, dealing with the commissioners, dealing with the sheriff, dealing with county attorney, and so forth, and gave me a great deal of insight in terms of how that operation
That,
functioned.
register of deeds.
Right, register of
You know,
deeds.
one of the great things I've seen here with us, Republicans have been in control of the county, as for the last at least 14 years I've been there. I've never seen the Democrats in the leadership position because Rockingham County has more Republicans than they do Democrats.
44 years that I've been
usually 2 to
around,
1.
it's always
Yeah,
been a
2 to 1.
Republican
Yeah,
county.
usually in Rockingham County, we're about 2 to 1.
Yeah, so we're fortunate. We've been keeping the taxes low on the county. We've been going through everything. Like me, my background after the Marines was human resource management. So, in hiring, firing, benefits, that's why I chose to stay on the human resource subcommittee, to be able to, go and look at the numbers, on employees and everything else, on certain part-time employees versus long benefits versus for this one or that one. So, able to, say, hey, do we really need that position? We haven't filled it for 3 years. Apparently we're doing more than with less than,
Sure.
But
The thing about Rockingham County, it's the second biggest county by population, and
Mm.
in terms of land area, goes all the way from, here in Londonderry and the Manchester border, all the way to Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
to the Maine border. The seacoast of New Hampshire is part of Rockingham County.
Yeah.
It's a very diverse county.
and we're doing pretty good on the COVID there. So definitely keep washing your hands. If you're out and about, wear a mask. I mean, I'm not saying it's a mandatory thing. I can't wear a mask because of my breathing. Just had an operation. I don't like wearing that mask, but if you feel safe wearing one, you wear one, and look out for each other. But we got about 1 minute and 20 seconds here. If people want to get in touch with you and ask you questions, how would they? You call you? You got Facebook? You got?
Well, I'm on Facebook under my name, Wayne MacDonald, MacDonald. I'm on Twitter at Wayne MacDonald, MacDonal1. My email is elephantsmarching@msn.com.
I love that.
I've had it forever. I always thought it was appropriate given what my party affiliation and my involvement has been over the years. And my number, my home phone, 603-434-8191.
Sherm, you don't have Facebook, but you're getting
I
there.
don't.
Yeah, but you want your number. how
One
to
of
get
the-
in
one of
touch
these
with you.
No,
days.
thank you.
One of these days.
One of these days. If you want to get in touch with Sherm, you can call me. I'll throw the pigeon over there and fly to Sherm's house, and we'll make sure.
Well, I do have 2 emails. I got my private, my personal email, and we got the state
The
email.
state email,
so-
go on the
The email
state.
was a long time in coming, wasn't it, Sherm?
Plus,
Yeah.
no, I've had the email for a
Okay.
long time.
Okay.
Just haven't got around to the Facebook thing yet.
Right. No, we're working on them there. We're going to get there with them there. But anyways, once again, this is Who's Looking Out for You, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you to my guest and my co-host.
Thank you.
And we'll
Thank
be
you.
back.